Students, Sairam, this is Megha Miss here, and today we are going to start with a new lesson, that is lesson number 1, gravitation, our first session. I hope the lesson which we completed, lesson number 2, periodic classification of the elements, you are studying it. Okay, now starting with this chapter, I would like you to ask some question. Okay, now my next slide I am showing you. What types of forces are you familiar with? Now you will tell, Miss, we know many types of forces. Yes, you have studied about the magnetic forces, you studied about the friction forces, yes, you studied mechanical forces, many different types of forces you have been learning from standard 5th only. Yes, 5th, 6th, 7th you have studied, so on. Yes, you also studied about the gravitational force. Yes, from the chapter name only you will understand that today we are going to study something about the gravitational forces. So here in this chapter, as I told you, you know many types of forces. We are only going to consider the gravitational force. Okay, students. Now, what is this gravitational force and who did the discovery for this? We are going to study. Okay. Now you can see this, a person, he is sitting on that earth. You will see in between, you will see the earth, then a tree you can see, where you can see the apples are there on the tree, a falling apple is written, and a moon is there up. Okay, now what we have to do, now some person is sitting down. Now who is that person? Can you guess? Yes, that person is none other than Newton. Yes, the person is Newton. Now you know that the gravitational force was discovered by the Newton. Yes, students, Newton was the person who thought of the gravitational force. How he thought of that? He thought, why that apple from the tree, when it is falling down, why did it fall in a straight vertically downward direction? Yes, so he thought that from the between of the earth, can you see the black color line is there in between? Moon is also attracted towards the earth through that black color line, and that apple is also falling and it is going to be attracted towards the center, because from the center only the gravitational force is there, the center of gravity is there, right? So he came to know that yes, there might be some forces that the earth is exerting on the substances, different all types of substances, and that force we called it as the gravitational force. Okay, students, now we will see what is that gravitational force. Now the gravitational force is a universal force, as it acts only between two objects on the earth. What we will call it? It is a universal force, and it acts only between the two objects on the earth, but also between any two objects in the universe. Not compulsory, it will be only exerted by the earth, and it is between the two substances which are there on the earth, but it also may be between the two objects in the universe. In universe also, any two objects can be attracted towards each other because of this gravitational force. I hope you understood the definition. Again, I'll repeat, the gravitational force is the universal force. It acts not only between two objects on the earth, but also between any two objects in the universe. Newton thought that if the force of gravitation acts on apples on the tree at different heights, yes, apples are at different height. At one branch only you will see all the apples? No. Yes, from the surface of the earth, can it also act on the objects at even greater heights, much farther away from the earth? Now what he thought of, if apples are at different heights, and then also there is the force of gravitation, then if some objects are very far away from the earth, will be there any gravitational force? He started studying about this. Okay, students, now we are going to study the next concept, that is the circular motion and the centripetal force. Okay, student, now what is this circular motion and what are the centripetal force? We are going to study about that. Before that, we are just doing a small experiment here. Okay, student, you can see a person standing in the positions, you can see A and B. Yes, top view is shown, and the horizontally also you can see how the person is standing, right? And what I am doing, I have taken a string and I have tied a stone to that string. And what is the person doing? She is rotating. Okay, she is rotating that particular stone in a circular motion, you can say. When I am moving anything in a circular orbit, I will say that that particular substance is set in the circular motion. Okay, so you can see this diagram where a stone tied to a string moving along a circular path and its velocity is tangential direction. How is the velocity of the stone? It is in tangential direction. Now what is this mean? We will see in our next presentation. Okay students, now as long as we are holding the string, we are pulling the stone towards us. So till the time we are rotating, holding the string, and we are circulating it, what we are doing? We are pulling the stone towards us, that is towards the center of the circle. As your hand, as you will pick it up, yes, and as you will pick it up the string, and as you will start rotating, your hand will be in middle, yes, so that is the center of the circle, and are applying a force towards it, and you are going to apply the force towards it. The force stops acting if we release the string. Yes, you are going to apply the force, and because of that force the stone will move. Yes, but if you stop rotating, if you cut the connection between the string and your hand, what will happen? Force will stop acting. Yes, in this case the stone will fly off along a straight line. What will happen? The stone will fly off in a straight line, it will fly off, okay, which is tangent to the circle. Now you have studied in mathematics what is a tangent. So when you will leave the string, the stone will move off in the tangential direction, that is in a perpendicular direction to the circle. So this position of the stone when the string is released, because that is the direction of its velocity at that instant of time. That is the direction of velocity, means with that force it was moving, and whichever direction what it will do, it will be out with a tangential direction to the circle. Okay, again we will see here in our presentation diagram. Okay students, that is, here you can see it. Okay, if I show you, these are my tangents. Can you see my this one tangent? If the stone is coming out from this way, the middle portion what I have hold in my hand, see, it is forming a 90 degree. So this is my tangent. This is, for example, my one tangent. It may be the direction of the stone coming out. Okay, otherwise the stone may also, if it is coming off in this direction, if it is coming off, see here you can see, then the, see, from here again it is forming here a 90 degree angle. Okay, so tangent to the circle, this is my circular motion which you can see, this is my circle. Yes, and whatever the stone can come in any direction, it can come out. So whichever direction it will come out, it will be always tangent to the circle. You remember this. Okay students, I hope you understood this. Yes, now, so this I told you. Now we have performed a similar activity previously, in which a 5 rupee coin kept on a rotating circular disc flies off the disc along the tangent to the disc. Means simple, you have to remember that whenever anything is in a circular motion and it comes out from that motion, it will be always tangent to that circular motion, means it will be coming out in a perpendicular direction to the circle, and that perpendicular direction we called it as the tangent. Okay students, so thus a force acts on any object moving along a circle and it is directed towards the center of the circle. Yes, from the center only that tangent is forming. Okay, 90 degree angle will be from the center if you draw a line, and a line you draw at the circumference at any point from the circumference. If you draw the line, then it is forming a 90 degree. Yes, so a force acts on any object moving along a circle and it is directed towards the center of the circle. This is called the centripetal force. Which force you will call it as, students? Centripetal force. Okay, centripetal means center seeking. Okay students, centripetal means what? Center seeking. Okay, so important definition: the force which acts on any object, okay, which is in a circular motion, we can say, yes, and it is directed towards the center of the circle. From the center of the circle it is directed, then this is called as the centripetal force. Okay students, centripetal means center seeking. What does centripetal means? Centripetal means center seeking. So the force is how? The force is center seeking force. Okay students, I hope you understood this. Yes, now we will do the next slide. From the above activity, the moon to go around the earth, there must be a force which is exerted on the moon, and this force must be exerted by the earth, which attracts the moon towards itself. Okay students, so here we can get some explanation about when the moon is going around the earth, there must be also some force which is exerted on the moon, and this must be exerted by the earth, and because of which the moon is getting attracted towards the earth. Okay, similarly the sun must be attracting the planets. As I told you before, only we saw that any two objects may also be attracted in the universe because of this force. Yes, so similarly the sun must be attracting the planets, including the earth, towards itself. Okay students, did you understand? Not compulsorily. Now we saw that the earth is only having the gravitational pull. We saw that sun may be also, it may happen that sun may also have that force, and because of which it is attracting, that attracting force also may the sun may be having, because of which it is attracting the planets also, as well as the earth also. Earth is also our planet, right? I hope you understood till here. Okay, now next topic we are starting with, that is the Kepler's law. Okay, now came into the picture one new scientist. His name was Johannes Kepler. Okay students, Newton was there, many scientists were studying about this planetary motions. Okay, but now Kepler also tried some of his study, and we will be studying now Newton's laws of motions. You have studied in your 9th standard. Now we are going to study about the Kepler's law. Okay, now by the 16th century, a lot of data were available about planetary positions and motions. Johannes Kepler studied this data. Okay students, so many things came into picture about the planetary motions. Okay, so now Johannes Kepler decided to study them. He noticed that the motion of the planets follow certain laws. He said that certain laws have been followed. Okay, he stated 3 laws describing planetary motion. These are known as Kepler's law. Okay student, what we call them as a Kepler's law. How many laws did he give? 3 laws he gave. Okay, now before starting with his law, he told something about an ellipse. Now what is an ellipse? An ellipse is a curve obtained when a cone is cut by inclined plane. Okay students, here you can see this is my cone. Can you see it here? Yes, and if I am cutting the cone, okay, in an inclined plane, can you see this is an inclined plane? If I am cutting the middle part, you can see the middle part, you will get this as a ellipse. What is that middle part? We will call that circular part as the ellipse. It is not a total circle, but it is like this, which is shown here in the picture. Okay student, now it has 2 focal points. How many focal points it has? 2. As we have radius in the circle, here we have the focal points. Okay student, the sum of the distances of the 2 focal points from every point on the curve is constant. So whatever will be the sum of the distances of the to the two focal points from every point on the curve, on every point on the curve, if you take the distances, it is going to be equal. F1 and F2 are the focal points of the ellipse shown in the figure 1.3. See, this is F1 and this is F2. These are the two focal points of the ellipse here. Okay, if A, B and C are the 3 points on the ellipse, now here can you see, this is my point A, this is my point B and this is my point C. These are the 3 points on the ellipse. Then what they are saying, AF1 means this distance, AF1, can you see this AF1 distance plus AF2, this AF2, okay, will be equal to BF1 plus BF2. Okay students, and will be equal to CF1 and CF2, as they have told that the distance from any point is going to remain constant. Okay, I hope you understood what is an ellipse. This whatever blue color circle you can see, I can't say it is a circle, I'll call it as an ellipse. Okay, circle has got one center, here you have got the two focal points. Okay, now the orbit of a planet moving around the sun. Now this is the diagram which we are going to use to study the Kepler's 3 laws. Okay, now the orbit of the planet means how the planet is moving. Now can you see, this is the planet A, it is given the name A. Okay, it is how it is moving, it is moving to a position B, then B to C it is moving, C to D it is moving. Okay, and then D to E it will move, E to F it will move, and then F to again it will come back to A. Okay student, so like this it is going to move. Okay, so we are going to see depending upon this motion of the planet around the sun. Can you see this sun is in between? Yes, we are going to study regarding the 3 laws related to this diagram. Okay, now Kepler's first law. Which law we are going to study? Kepler's first law. What the law is saying? The orbit of the planet. Now we have seen how the planet is moving around the sun is an ellipse. We have seen it is not a complete circle. How it was? It was an ellipse with the sun at one of the foci. We have seen 2 foci are there, right? But here the orbit of the planet, it is going to be an ellipse with the sun at one of the foci. Figure 1.4, now only we saw, shows the elliptical orbit of the planet revolving around the sun. The position of the sun is indicated by S. Now only you saw in the diagram. So very important laws you will remember. First law, the orbit of a planet is an ellipse with the sun at one of the foci. Okay, 2 foci are there. We will consider here only 1 foci. Okay students, I hope you understood this. Yes, now we'll see the second law. Now the Kepler's second law, what it is telling us? The line joining the planet and the sun sweeps equal areas in equal intervals of time. Again I'll repeat, the line joining the planet and the sun sweep equal areas in equal intervals of time. Okay student, now here AB and CD are the distances covered by the planet in equal time. After equal intervals of time, the position of the planet starting from A and C are shown by B and D respectively. Straight lines, I'll just show you the picture. I'll just read out this and then I'll show you the picture again. The straight lines AS and CS sweep equal areas in equal interval of time. Area ASB and CSD are equal. Okay, we'll just move back to the picture so you will understand the law. You can see now, I'll show you this A to B. Can you see it has moved from A to B? So it has covered some distance, this blue color distance. Okay, then it has moved from C to D. Okay, this C to D portion. Okay, so this area, blue color area, what it has covered. So this areas will be equal. Okay, so they have swept in equal intervals of time, they have covered the equal areas. Okay students, did you understand? Okay, now we will see the next law. Okay students, We have seen the second law also. Now we will come to Kepler's third law. Now what is the Kepler's third law saying? The square of its period of revolution around the sun. Means what is the period of revolution? The time it will take to revolve around the sun is directly proportional to the cube of the mean distance of the planet from the sun. Okay, the whatever the distance will be of the planet from the sun, its cube will be directly proportional to the period of revolution. Thus, if r is the average distance of the planet from the sun, what we are considering? R, small r, and t is its period of revolution, then t square is directly proportional to the r cube. Yes, because it is the square of its period of revolution. So t square divided by r cube is equal to constant. We take it as k. Okay students, did you understand this? Again I'll repeat, Kepler's third law, the square of its period of revolution around the sun is directly proportional to the cube of mean distance of the planet from the sun. I hope students you understood this. Okay, so Kepler obtained these laws simply from the study of the position of the planets obtained by the regular observations. He had no explanation as to why planets obey these laws. He could not explain this, why the planets will obey this law. But yes, only doing the study, he came to the study of the position of the planets. But he could not tell why they will obey this only. Okay, so I hope the three laws which we studied, you are going to learn it properly. Okay, so we'll come to the end of this session today. Today what we have studied, children? We studied about the gravitational force. Yes, it is the force which is directed toward the center of the earth, and it is the force of attraction between any two objects. Yes, it is not compulsory. In the universe the objects can be any object. Yes, then we saw about the circular motion and the centripetal force. Again, the force which is acted at the center seeking force. Yes, and it is in a circular manner, then we called it as the centripetal force. And we saw about the Kepler's three laws. Yes, Kepler gave the three laws for the planetary motions of the planets, but after giving, he cannot tell why the planets are obeying these three laws. Okay students, for today I'll stop it here. Study it properly, the presentation. Take care. Saira.